Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
No asterisks, no doubts. The 2024 LA Dodgers are World Series champs. And the Yankees had their chance to force a Game 6 and blew it with their own mistakes. And the NFL does not have a quarterback development problem.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
For the second time since 2020, the LA Dodgers are World Series champions, and this time there can be no asterisk. Dodgers fans will, of course, tell you there wasn't one in 2020 either. A 7-6 come from behind win in the Bronx in Game 5. Jeff Snyder from Locked On Dodgers joins me now. And Jeff, it seems fitting to me anyway that you had the legendary team and the payroll and the division series is as far as they can go. And then this team is kind of a scrappier version of those teams, okay, with the best player in baseball on it now. And this is the one that finally gets the job done.
Yeah, and really it was more the injuries this year that made it so unlikely.
Right.
That the Dodgers were every bit as talented as the previous teams, and then so much of that talent got hurt and was gone for the season, especially on the pitching side. It was remarkable. It really, I don't even know how to explain it, but what they had stepped up when they needed to. And it was somebody different every time. But we heard all postseason long, it's not really a winning formula. You can't really win in the postseason with only 3 starters. You can't really win in the postseason when you're relying on a bullpen game every 4th day. And it's like, well, you know what? Like I told you last night, Peter, there is no formula to win in the postseason except score more runs than your opponents. and so, yes, we now know, yes, you can win in the postseason with only 3 starters, go to bullpen game every 4th game, as long as guys step up when they need to, whether it's Tommy Edman or Freddie Freeman or Walker Buehler or the entire bullpen in that bullpen game against the Padres. Everybody on this team at different times contributed, and that was the big difference between this team and the last couple of years where almost nobody contributed, partly because they didn't get much chance. They only got a few games, and this time they came through.
Dave Roberts mentioned, they talked about this on the telecast, that he felt like this version of the Dodgers, that they'd always had the talent, to your point, but that this year they learned how to brawl. They learned they weren't tough enough before. Does that jive with what you've seen over the last few years and what might be different about this team?
It's hard to argue with that. I think Dave Roberts' job is to play hype man for his team. Sure. I think, all these things that we say, they're after the fact, because the fact is the Padres know how to brawl. The Padres are, battle. They were famously good at comebacks this year, and the Dodgers beat them. Does that mean the Dodgers were better at that aspect than them? It means they won 3 games before the Padres did, I think that every team that makes it to the postseason, and the farther you go in the postseason, the more this is true, is a great team that has a ton of good qualities that if they make it and win the World Series, people will point and say, that's why they won. And it's like history is written by the winners,
Sure.
Because the Dodgers scored more runs than their opponents 11 times this postseason, they get to write the history. And so, yes, brawlers, sure. I'll take that narrative. I wish I believed in it more, because that's something you could just show up to spring training and say, hey, guys, remember last year how all we had to do was be great brawlers and we won the World Series? Let's do that again. I wish it was that easy. It's not. But you know what? Whatever they are, the combination of, coming up clutch, getting a little bit lucky. They got a lot lucky tonight. The Yankees, the parallel to that game against the Padres when Buehler was pitching, the Dodgers just decided, what would life be like if defense didn't exist? The Yankees did their version of that tonight, and the Dodgers capitalized, just like the Padres did in that game. The Dodgers jumped on that, and that was the difference in this game, that they, Garrett Cole didn't deserve to lose this game or to not win this game. But you know what? The Dodgers deserve to win it because they capitalized on the Yankees' mistakes. That's what you got to do. And it's a game of inches. The Dodgers, they won by 1 run. This very easily could have gone to Game 6, and who knows what happens but all we know is everybody will have a reason for why it happened. The only thing we know for sure is it happened because the Dodgers won 11 games.
Yeah, and to your point, the how part of it is probably going to be lost to history at a certain point. Okay, so this stretch now, I mentioned going back to 2020 when they win, does winning another one, how much does that paper over some of the disappointments? And do you think some of those disappointments only make this in a way an inevitable, not even inevitable is probably overstating it, but is a direct result of the failures that they've had?
You know, I don't know if it's a result of the failures. It definitely, you appreciate it more. The 2 first-round exits the last 2 years, the intellectually dishonest people who try to put an asterisk next to 2020, you know, all those things, the Astros cheating in 2017, there's been a lot of disappointment over the years. And this one, you know, other than one coping Padres fan I saw on Twitter who was trying to explain why if the Dodgers win this World Series, it won't be legitimate either because they spent a lot of money on their players. They had the nerve to pay their players to play baseball.
Wow.
You know, other than that, nobody can take this one away from, nobody can even try to. This one is the Dodgers had the best record in the regular season. They beat the Padres, who everybody thought was the best team in baseball. And then they beat the Mets, who were the hottest team in baseball. And then they beat the Yankees, the best team in the American League. There is nothing about this World Series that isn't absolutely blissful. And some of that is because of the disappointments of the previous years.
So is there an enduring lesson here that potentially other teams or that future Dodger teams can take away other than, hey, when you get an opportunity to go sign the best player in baseball, like pay him $500 million?
No, you're kind of joking there, but no, the answer is build the best team possible. Yeah. Hey, billionaire owner, you want to do this? Build the best team possible. And you know what? Hire the smartest guy in baseball, and Andrew Friedman. Oh, sorry, he's taken. You know, the Dodgers are great. Every way that you can build a baseball team, drafting, developing, trading, free agents, the Dodgers are good at it, and they have the money to put behind it. That's the formula. Put together the best team possible, and every couple of years, the cards will fall right, and you will win the World Series, hopefully.
Stay up to date all year on the LA Dodgers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Dodgers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, what do the Yankees take away from this World Series failure? Before we answer that, Derek Carr is being realistic on his return. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could come from an NFL game in Week 9 with their quarterback on deck to return. The New Orleans Saints are big favorites over the lowly Carolina Panthers. FanDuel has the Saints 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte this Sunday. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. New Orleans Saints quarterback Derek Carr is expected to play Sunday against the Carolina Panthers after missing the past 3 games with an oblique injury. Carr said it was a slow process to return, but gave credit to the Saints' athletic training staff. He's realistic about his return to the field, though, saying, "I'm no savior." Carr also said there's going to be a full commitment from himself to his teammates in the 10 weeks left in the regular season. While the Saints will get Carr back, the Panthers are looking to Bryce Young yet again. He will make his second straight start for Carolina on Sunday against Carr in New Orleans. Young will start as veteran Andy Dalton continues to rehab from a sprained thumb on his throwing hand, which he suffered last week in a car accident. Head coach Dave Canales said of Young, "I'm excited for Bryce to have another opportunity to build on things that we've talked about, to continue to just grow and get that experience that we talked about is invaluable." Remember, Bryce Young was benched a few weeks ago after being the #1 overall pick just last year. Toronto Raptors forward Scotty Barnes will miss at least 3 weeks because of a right orbital fracture, the team said Wednesday. Barnes was struck by Denver Nikola Jokic while going for a rebound late in the fourth quarter of Monday's loss to the Nuggets. Barnes went down before stumbling back to the bench in pain. The Raptors said in a statement that Barnes would be reevaluated in 3 weeks and his condition will be updated as appropriate. For the first half of Game 5, it looked like the New York Yankees were going to at least try to make a series of it. Then 5 unearned runs. And again, the Yankees cannot get out of their own way. A 7-6 loss for a $300 million team. Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees joins me now. And Brian, I have a feeling Yankees fans are going to be thinking about that 5th inning for a long, long time.
Yeah, it was a microcosm of the whole season, right? Errors, miscued plays, lack of focus, all things that I think personally fall on the manager, but that's a conversation to have in the offseason. The 5th inning was just a microcosm of the entire season. Your ace was your ace, but miscues, bad plays, lack of focus. The Yankees, unfortunately, were thinking about where they were going to sit on the plane back to Los Angeles without realizing you need 27 outs in the game to win.
When we had Stacey on a couple of days ago talking about this team and where they were, I asked her about Aaron Boone and why, if it wasn't going to go the way you wanted, why you wouldn't make changes if so much of, at least in her mind, of this fell on his shoulders. Why not? What is your answer to that question?
Loyalty. Unbeknownst to loyalty. I don't know why they have the loyalty to Aaron Boone they do, but the front office and the ownership team has an unexplainable amount of loyalty to Aaron Boone for whatever reason. And there's not going to be a change, especially because they went to the World Series. This is going to be framed publicly as the team went to the World Series. It's further than they've gone in a decade plus. That's how it'll be framed. Is it the right move? No. Should he be out of a job? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, your team was not focused and not playing in a mature way of baseball late in the World Series, the end of the year, and that falls on the manager. It just does.
In terms of roster construction, I mentioned the enormous payroll, but you look across the way and you go, okay, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman has this incredible series. For all of the money invested in this roster, is it really as good as what the Dodgers are putting out on the field? I mean, I think that's a real question we have to ask ourselves here.
Yeah, the Dodgers make better decisions at the end of the day, right? When it comes to signing free agents, when it comes to knowing who they should go after, who they should trade for, what prospects to move on from and when to move on from them, all around as an organization, they make better decisions than the New York Yankees. That's final. And it showed in this series, right? It showed with guys like Gavin Lux batting in the 9 hole. It showed with guys like Walker Buehler coming out of the bullpen ready to pitch. It's a full organizational thing. The Yankees aren't a bad baseball team, but they don't make all of the right decisions when it comes to free agency and when it comes to trades. And I think it showed more than anything in this game tonight. The Dodgers were the better team in the series. They were the better team in this game. They were the more focused team. They were the more experienced team. And it showed tenfold all the way through the entire game. The focus in the offseason immediately has to be on Juan Soto, immediately keeping him, and then you piece together the rest of the roster.
I was going to ask you if you thought that this would cause the Yankees to double down on the team that they've built or make major changes.
Yeah, I actually think if you were a Yankee fan who desperately is afraid they were going to lose Juan Soto in free agency, I think this is the only outcome that guarantees that he's back as a Yankee. Because I think this makes the ownership look at it and say, there's no way we could lose him at this point. They will overpay. They will go into whatever deep waters they have to go to make sure they can keep Juan Soto, not get outbid by anybody else in the league. And I think this was the only outcome. If they won the World Series, I think ownership could have hid behind, hey, we won the World Series. It stinks to lose a guy like that, but money becomes money. I don't think at a certain point now, after losing the World Series, I don't think you can afford to potentially lose Juan Soto to your crosstown rival. So I think that if you wanted Juan Soto to stay as a Yankee, I think you're going to get your wish at this point, definitely. And then other wholesale changes will have to be made. But I think the one decision that has to be made immediately going into the offseason is keeping your superstar right fielder.
Stay up to date on the New York Yankees all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Yankees on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, why the NFL does not have a quarterback development problem. Some are wondering where all the good quarterback play went and who's to blame for its disappearance. This has led to some blaming the entire league for being bad at developing quarterbacks. As Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland told Michelle Majuk, maybe it's just because the talent level isn't there.
With the Anthony Richardson benching, that has happened this week. Everyone's talking about the NFL doesn't develop quarterbacks anymore. And, we never want to have any patience. And, Michelle, I just want to say that I think that there's this notion that if certain quarterbacks got more time to develop, that they would turn into better players. And I would just say that some guys, it doesn't matter how long you develop them, they're not going to turn into good quarterbacks. Not every player in the NFL is going to be good. That, and I feel like there's an air of this conversation where it's like, if these guys just had more time, no, it doesn't matter how much time you give Will Levis. It doesn't matter how much time you give Mitch Trubisky. Daniel Jones has started 71 games in the NFL. He's not a good player. So while maybe there are some players, and I would also say everyone is loving Sam Darnold early. Well, he's turning back into a pumpkin before our eyes, folks, as I will say, Michelle completely predicted. I guess I just hate that. I feel like everybody is in a hurry to pile on the NFL, and it's cool to be like, the NFL sucks at this, and this is why. But I think the reality is some of these guys just aren't good players, and you can develop them as long as you want. The best version of them is still not a good enough quarterback in the NFL, and I feel like that's kind of lost in this conversation.
The reality of the situation with quarterbacks is there just are never going to be that many of them. It doesn't matter how long 7-on-7 is a part of high school football. It doesn't matter how name, image, and likeness can democratize college sports. There's only ever going to be so many good quarterbacks in the NFL, just like there's only ever going to be so many star players in the NBA. I'm talking about true blue, super duper star players, because that's the closest proxy. We're talking about the LeBron James, Giannis, Luka, Jokic level players. That's the quarterbacks in the NFL. There's just only ever going to be 6, 8 of those guys. That's just the nature of how pro sports works. And the 40th best quarterback today is still probably much more skilled, much more talented than 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But the overall level of talent is also bigger and better. The average player is faster, stronger, smarter. The game has evolved. This is just the nature of it. We get nervous because these young quarterbacks are getting benched, perhaps sooner than we thought they would. Teams are getting impatient, but that's because they're seeing quarterbacks elsewhere come right in and produce. CJ Stroud in Houston takes his team to the postseason after they win 2 games the year before. Owners are looking around the league going, wait, I want that. And if this guy's not going to give it to me, let's go try and do it again with the next guy. Kevin O'Connell made waves this year earlier when he said teams fail quarterbacks before quarterbacks fail teams. I don't know that that's true. I think there's just only so many really, really, really good quarterbacks on this earth at any given time. And it's kind of just the luck of the draw who gets one. And finally, I can't believe I have to say this, but don't try to rip off the right fielder's glove if he attempts to catch a foul ball, especially not in the World Series. I can't believe I had to say that out loud, but apparently I did, as 2 Yankees fans, just call them Austin and John, attempted to rip the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove in Game 4 in the right field corner as Betts tried to catch a foul pop-up. Both men are season ticket holders and were told if they try to attend Game 5, they would be arrested. As of now, doesn't seem like they tried. Doesn't seem like they were arrested, but they have, unfortunately, received their 15 minutes of fame over all of this. Unfortunately for them, their team, their season's over. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the Jets win on Thursday night or be plunged even further into the darkness? See what we did there? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.